Hello, hello. We're in the room with the trusty light. It's quite nice outside, but I pulled the blinds down for the lighting. Today for discussion, it's Joan Didion's Blue Nights. Now, this was a book that my book club, we decided to read this book. And it's a memoir by Joan Didion. Joan Didion was a well-known journalist, American journalist. She was a Californian, but she lived for a lot of her life in New York, was quite well-known throughout her life. She was a bit part of the gonzo journalism, what's termed as new journalism in the United States. I'm not as familiar with this movement myself, but quite closely related to Hunter S. Thompson, in the vein of also Truman Capote. So these journalists and writers. A side note, if you are looking to engage in literature with people, I highly recommend starting a book club. There are quite a lot of people that are open to doing this. I very much value book clubs, starting book clubs, because while reading is quite a personal experience, being a part of a book club and discussing books with other people can really be a really rich experience for ourselves. You get to learn different perspectives about the books, and you get to kind of mull about them and mingle with, mix those perspectives with your own. Many people are open to starting a book club. Ask your local library, your local bookstore, or make a post online, and you will see quite a lot of people are eager to talk about literature with other people. So this was the book that we decided to read. I haven't discussed it with my book club yet, but I wanted to make a video on it already. Now, this is a memoir by Joan Didion, and her best known book is also a memoir. It's called The Year of Magical Thinking, and it concerns her coming to terms with the death of her husband, who was also a writer. Blue Nights is in a similar vein. This was written a few years after that, but in here, what is the central piece is, for the most part, the death of her daughter, Quintana. Now, it's a memoir about grief. It's a meditation of memories, parenthood, and for the most part also health concerns. Health concerns prop up throughout this narrative. Health concerns that we are not aware of during the time, but that just seem to hit us like a freight train. And they really impact our lives and impact the lives of people around us just when we least expect them. Now, in the memoir, she kind of goes into Quintana's life, how Quintana, who was adopted by them, became a part of their lives, how essential and important she is to their lives. She doesn't really go into the weeds as to Quintana's illness, but Quintana, her biological family had quite a lot of biological medical illnesses. One of her brothers passed away quite early. Her family, I believe it's alluded to, they had issues with alcoholism, and some of these issues were inescapable for Quintana. Quintana was a remarkable woman. She was very artsy, and she's described as very incredibly mature for her age. And a lot of the plights that she expresses, that Joan Didion shows her as expressing, are plights that a young girl that indicate a young girl that is grappling with life as an adult. adulthood and childhood and parenting are touched upon quite a lot by Joan Didion. Quintina, a lot of the thoughts that are expressed in her mind, they seem to be thoughts about growing up, about escaping places, about being someone in the world. I guess it's fairly common for young people to have these thoughts, but looking back, I myself didn't have too many of these thoughts, I don't think, at least too many of these mature thoughts. When we think of mortality, we think of children. This is a consistent line throughout the memoir. However, Didion turns this on its head later on. Actually, the focus is not as much on children, but on the fear of aging and death. When we think of mortality, we think of the children that we were, the young people that we were, all the possibilities that we had. And it's only too late that we realize that these possibilities are sort of out of our grasp, we believe. Didion, as I mentioned, talks quite a lot about aging and medical emergencies, how at certain points in your life, certain things start to become very difficult. It starts to become much more difficult to, say, have a regular sleep schedule or to do certain activities that you once took for granted. Didion meditates on these things quite a lot. Memories as well are something that Didion seems to write quite a lot about, but to her, there's quite a lot of passages on memories. To her, memories are something that's over. They're not good or bad. They're just things that she writes as, in theory, these mementos serve to bring back the moment. In fact, they serve only to make clear how inadequately I appreciated the moment when it was here. How inadequately I appreciated the moment when it was here is something else I could never afford to see. So memories are something that we only consider memories when they become memories. We don't consider it in the moment, exactly. And it reminds me of Kurt Vonnegut, something Kurt Vonnegut said during one of his lectures, which is that when you witness a happy moment, a good moment, take note of it in the moment. Understand this is a great moment that I'm in. Isn't this a beautiful time right now? And the memoir is composed of, I think, 35 chapters, but it's quite a short memoir. Many of these chapters are a few pages long, and they do deal with Didion's life. They're kind of thematically a bit all over the place, but they all really are encompassed by the themes of memories, parenthood, and grief. Towards the end, the last chapter, she writes something quite telling, which is, I know what it is I am experiencing. I know what the frailty is. I know what the fear is. The fear is not for what is lost. What is lost is already in the wall. What is lost is already behind locked doors. The fear for what is still to be lost. The fear is for what is still to be lost. You may see nothing still to be lost, yet there is no day in her life on which I do not see her. So that's a quite telling ending. Our fears are for things that are going to be lost, that we're not perhaps aware of, that we're perhaps subconsciously only aware of. On a note of the title, Blue Nights. Blue Nights refers to the gloaming, that period typically in summertime where throughout. It depends on the part of the world, but it's typically during the summertime where this is essentially the golden hour, where there's a lot of brightness that is expressed just as the sun is being set. The blue nights, you think the end of the day will never come. As the blue nights draw to a close, and they will, and they do, you experience an actual chill, an apprehension of illness. At the moment you first notice, the blue night is going, the days are already shortening, the summer is gone. This book is called Blue Nights because at the time I began it, I found my mind turning increasingly to illness, to the end of promise, the dwindling of the days, the inevitability of the fading, the dying of the brightness. Blue nights are the opposite of the dying of the brightness, but they are also its warning. Blue nights are the opposite of the dying of the brightness. Sort of an encompassing new a new place that we can find ourselves, I guess, in this gloaming, this subtle lengthening of our nights. So that was Joan Didion's Blue Nights. It's about 150 pages, quite easy to read, but it is a very, very sobering story. Quite personal and quite sobering. But this is not something that I typically read, but it did really stick with me quite a lot. That we don't really know about many of these things until it's too late, and perhaps to take our lives in the moment. Anyways, that's it. Take care. Have a nice one.